Okay, today we're doing lessons 2.4 day 1 and 2, 2.5, and 2.6. So we're going to start with 2.4 day 1 and day 2, and we're going to talk about slope. So remember, whenever we're talking about slope, remember slope is represented by the letter M. It's your change in y over your change in x. And then another reminder is that when I'm moving, if I go up or to the right, it's positive. If I go down or to the left, it's negative. So that does affect your number depending on which direction you're going. Okay, so let's look at example number 1. It says, what is the vertical distance, the change in y for this slope triangle? Your change in y, you see how here you have 2 points? They're called lattice points. These points are in a nice position so you can clearly see the coordinates. For my change in y, it looks like I go up 1, 2 boxes. So because I go up, it's positive 2. So my change in y is plus 2 or positive 2. And then for my change in x, I have this line right here. So I start here and I count this way. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Because I go to the right, that's plus 4. So my change in x is plus 4. Then in order to figure out what my slope is, I need both of those. So my m is my change in y over my change in x. My change in y is plus 2, and my change in x is plus 4. So my calculator, I'm going to divide those. So 2 divided by 4. Remember, if you get a decimal, you can do math, enter, enter. You get a fraction, so I'm going to have 1/2 as my slope. So my slope here is 1/2. Okay, so I'm going to do that for the other 4 examples on this page. There are already points on there, so you want to choose 2 of them. Then you want to do your change in y over your x, and then you want to simplify to get your answer. Okay, so let's do letter A. You can pick any 2 points that you want. So I'm going to pick this one, and I'm going to pick this one. Okay, I'm going to draw my triangle. Then I'm going to count how many up I go, and then how many to the right I go. So I go up 1, 2, 3, 4. So I go up 4 boxes. And I go to the right 1, 2, 3. I go to the right 3 boxes. Okay, so then when I'm writing my slope, remember it's your y over your x. So my y is plus 4. My x is plus 3. Always put it in your calculator and see if it simplifies to something else. So I'm going to do 4 divided by 3. Because I got a decimal, I'm going to do math, enter, enter. And so I get 4/3. So it's the same thing, but I'm just going to take away the plus signs. So 4/3. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to do letter B. Pick any 2 points. It really doesn't matter which 2 you pick. I'm going to pick these 2. I'm going to do my triangle. So it looks like I go up 1, so plus 1. And then this time I'm going to the left. If I go to the left, it's negative. And I go to the left 1, 2, 3. So this is negative 3. So then when I write my slope, it's my y over my x, so plus 1 over negative 3. If I put that in my calculator, so 1 divided by negative 3, math, enter, enter, it stays the same thing, so negative 1/3. I always like to check though, because you never know, so I would get into that habit of checking. Okay, perfect. Let's do these 2 examples at the bottom. So for C, you notice how C is a horizontal line? There's no dots here, so you can pick any 2 dots that you want on your line. So for example, I'm going to pick this dot and this dot. And I want to find my change going up and down and then left and right. So if I start with this dot up here, I don't have to move up or down any to be in the same row as this one. Okay, so I'm going up or down 0. So I'm going to put a 0. But I am moving to the right. And so I moved to the right 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, cool. So then when I write my slope, remember it's your y over your x. My y I put as plus 0. My x I put as plus 4. In my calculator, if I do 0 divided by 4, I get 0. So my slope here is 0. I also like to tell students to think of a car. So if I have a car here on this line, if that car is not moving, okay, it's not on, no one is pushing it, that car is going 0 miles per hour. So if I have a car on a horizontal line, my slope is 0. Okay, let's try letter D. You want to pick your 2 points. It doesn't matter which points you pick, so I'll pick this one and this one. So this time I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because I go up, it's plus. And I don't have to move left or right anything because I'm already in the same line. So I move to the left or to the right 0. So I'm just going to say to the right plus 0. So then when I write that as a fraction, my change in y is plus 5. My change in x is plus 0. So in my calculator, I'm going to do 5 divided by 0. And it tells me error because I'm dividing by 0. If the error message pops up on your calculator, that means that your slope is undefined. You can also think of the car situation here. So here, let me write my car. So if I have a car on a line that's straight up and down or vertical, that car is going to be affected by gravity. That car is going to fall. If that car falls, it's going to crash. When a car crashes, it becomes undefined because it's hard to tell the car, like, from what it is. So that's another way to remember it. If not, you could always do your change in y over your change in x, okay? So that's for both of these situations. All right, so let's move on to the next page. So more practice of the same thing. The only thing that we're going to add this time is the y-intercept or the start. So if I look at number 1, your y-intercept is wherever it touches the y-axis. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the y-axis for all of these. So it's very clear to me where I'm starting. Okay, if I look at number 1, I want to see where my line is this thing right here, touches the y-axis, the yellow line. And it touches right here at the number 2. That point is at 0, 2. So when I say my y-intercept, remember y-intercept is written as a point. So my y-intercept is at 0, 2. To calculate my slope, I need to pick 2 points, just like I did on the previous page. So there's already a point, I'm going to pick this one. Then I draw my triangle. Then I'm going to count how many up I go or down, and then how many left or right I go. So if I start down here, I'm going to go up 2, so that's plus 2. And I'm going to go to the right, so because I go to the right, and that's plus 1. So when I write my slope, it's my y over my x, so plus 2 over plus 1. 2 divided by 1, if I put it in my calculator, I get 2. Okay, keep in mind that your y-intercept is your b, so my b equals 2. And I know that my slope, my m, is also 2 because I solved for it. So when I'm writing my equation, remember your equation is always in the form of y equals mx plus b. So when I start my equation, I have y equals, my m is 2, the x will stay, my b is also 2, so plus 2. So that's my equation. The only thing that we're adding that's different is now the y-intercept. Okay, I'm going to try number 2. So on the y-axis, my line is touching this spot right here. That's at the spot 0, 3. Remember, my y-intercept is written as a point, so that means my b equals 3. Then I have to pick 2 points, so I already have a point there, and I'll pick this one right here. Draw my triangle. Then I'm going to see how many up I go and how many to the right I go. So if I start down here, I'm going up, which is positive. I'm going up 2. And then I'm going to the right, which is also positive, and I'm going to the right 1. So my slope of my line is always my y over my x, so 2 over 1, which is similar to the one I just did over here in number 1, which is 2. So my m is 2. So when I'm writing my equation, it's going to be in the same format. I'm going to have y equals my m, which is 2, my letter x, plus, and then my b. My b this time is 3 though, so that will change. Okay? At this point, I'm going to have you pause and try numbers 3 and 4. When you feel like you're done or you got it, you can unpause because I'm going to show you the answers for 3 and for 4. So here's what I got for 3 and for number 4. So 3 is a negative slope, so just be very careful. Your y-intercept is at 0.8. Because you're traveling down, it's negative, and so your slope ultimately is negative, and so this is my equation. Then for number 4, my y-intercept is also at 0.8. My slope is 4, because I did 4 and then divided by 1. Then when I write those two numbers in my equation, I get 4x plus 8. So if you got that, good job. Okay, let's move on to the next page. All right, so we're going to be building functions from tables. So now we are going to be given a table, and the table will help us create our equation. Remember, again, I can't stress this enough. Your m is your y over your x, right? Your change in y over your change in x. We have to use these coordinates to help fill in our table. Okay, so what do I mean by that? If I look at this point up here, the coordinates for this point are 4, 5. Okay, let me fill in all the points and then I'll go and look at my table. Okay, if I look at this point right here, this is 2, 2. And if I look at this point down here, this is at 0, negative 1. I'm going to write those points in my table, and then that'll help me find my changes. So 0, negative 1, remember this is my x and then it's my y. X is 0, y is negative 1. 2, 2 is already there. And then I have 4, 5, so this should be a 5. Okay, perfect. Now I can find my changes. So on the top, from 0 to 2, and then from 2 to 4, looks like I'm adding by 2. So if I keep that pattern going, this should be 6. So my change in x is plus 2, because that's what I'm doing each time. Okay, now I want to focus on the bottom. To go from negative 1 to 2, I'm increasing, so I'm adding. It might be easier if I look at 2 to 5. It looks like I'm adding by 3. So if I keep that pattern going, 5 plus 3, I get 8. And 8 plus 3, I get 11. So my change in y is plus 3. My y-intercept is where my line touches the y-axis. So it touches at 0, negative 1. It's also in my table if I want to look wherever x equals 0. So you have two ways of finding it. So my y-intercept is going to be at 0, negative 1. Remember, your slope is your y over your x, right? We wrote that at the beginning. My y is plus 3. My x is plus 2. If I put that in my calculator and try to divide it to make it smaller, I get a decimal, then I do math, enter, enter. So it stays the same. So I have my b, right? This is b is negative 1, and I have my m. Our equation is always in the form of y equals mx plus b. So then I'm going to plug these numbers in their correct spot. So I have y equals, my m is 3 over 2. My b is negative 1, so we'll put minus 1. So this time we just had the table to also help us fill out our equation and figure out our information, but you could have also just used the graph. Okay, let's talk about the next one. So for this one, I would like you to try this one by yourself. So you can go ahead and pause. Once you feel like you have the correct answer, you can go ahead and play the video, and then I'm going to show you the correct answer. We will do example 2, the one at the bottom, together. So here's what I got for that. Try it. So the top row is increasing by 2, and the bottom row is decreasing by 3. So my slope is negative here. It is negative 3 over 2. So when I plug my numbers into my equation, this is what I should have gotten. So hopefully you got that, and if not, that's okay. You can go ahead and copy it so that you have it. Okay, and we're gonna do the last one together. All right, this one, the graph is missing, right? The line is missing, but that's okay, we can add the line. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna see what the top row is changing by. So to go from 0 to 3, and then from 3 to 6, it looks like I'm adding by 3. So if I keep that pattern going, 3 plus 6, I get 9. However, to go in the opposite direction, we're gonna subtract. So this becomes negative 3. My change in x then is plus 3, right? Because we're always going from left to right. For the y's, it looks like I'm adding by 1. So if I keep that pattern going, this becomes 1, 2, and 3. My change in y is plus 1. Okay, I'm going to plot these points on my graph to create my line, and then I'm going to connect them. So I have negative 3, negative 1, 0, 0, 3, 1, 6, 2, and 9, 3. Then with my ruler, I'll connect them. My y-intercept, I can look at my graph, I can look at my table. If I look at the table, it's where x equals 0, which is right here. So my y-intercept is at 0, 0. Okay, my slope is my y over my x. My y is plus 1. My x is plus 3. If I put that in my calculator, I get a decimal, math, enter, enter, I get 1 over 3. So then when I write my equation, my b is 0, my m is 1/3. So my equation is y equals 1/3 x plus 0. You don't have to put the plus 0, so like you could have just wrote in 1/3 x, but I like to put it just so that I know that my start is at 0. Okay, perfect. Once you have that, go ahead and turn to the next page, and then the next page is the last one that we'll do for today. All right, so for this one, we're talking about functions with context. Remember, context just means like real world situation, like a word problem. So I'm talking about Robert. Robert is on a diet to lose weight. He currently weighs 220 pounds. Okay, that's useful. And he would like to reduce his weight to 200 pounds. His goal is to lose 5 pounds every 4 weeks. Okay, so at the beginning, Robert weighs 220 pounds. So at the beginning, Robert weighs 220 pounds. Okay? And every 4 weeks, so that means that my x, my top row, is increasing by 4. If I keep that pattern going, this becomes 12, 16, and 20. So my change in x is plus 4. Okay, to lose means negative. So if I'm losing pounds, it's going down, and it's going down by 5. So this is minus 5. If I keep that pattern going, this becomes 215, 210, 205, 200, and 195. So then my change in y is minus 5. Remember, I always want to find my changes. So then now that I know my change in x and my change in y, I think I want to find my slope just so that I have it. So remember, your m is your y over your x. So negative 5 over positive 4. If I put that in my calculator, I get a decimal, math, enter, enter. It stays the same. Always check though, it doesn't hurt. Okay, perfect. It says use the table to determine Robert's weight in 20 weeks. So if I look at my table, 20 weeks is right here, and it looks like he's gonna weigh 195 pounds. So let me write a sentence. So in 20 weeks, Robert will weigh 195 pounds. Okay, part C says write a rule for the pattern. Remember, rule means equation. Always look back at the table and see what variables, what letters they use. Use those variables. So my equation is always in the form of y equals mx plus b. However, this time I'm not using y, I'm using f of x. My m is negative 5 over 4. I'm using the letter x. My b is my start. Remember, your start is where x equals 0, and that's right here. So this is plus 220. Okay, so that's my rule, right? That's my equation. Part D says wrestling season will start in 3 months. Will Robert reach his target weight? And it tells you that 1 month is 4 weeks. So your problem, your table is in terms of weeks. I need to change months so that it's weeks before I plug it into my equation. So let's see. So I have 3 months, and then in every 1 month, there are 4 weeks. The months cancel. 3 times 4 is 12, so then this is 12 weeks. So in my rule, in my equation, anywhere that I see the letter x, I'm going to substitute that with the number 12. So I have f of 12 equals negative 5 over 4 times 12 plus 220. This is all calculator, so let's plug it in. Remember, it's good practice to plug it in. You'll need to for your test. So to get the fraction on your calculator, you press alpha, y equals, enter. So you see now I have the fraction. On the top, I'm going to put negative 5. On the bottom, I'm going to put 4. In parentheses, I'm going to put 12. And then plus, just one plus, 220. I'll press enter, and that's my answer. I get 205. So 205. So this is saying in 12 weeks or in 3 months, Robert will weigh 205 pounds. Okay, let me look back though, because his goal is 200 pounds. Unfortunately, he's not going to reach his goal. So for here, when I answer my question, I'm going to say no. So Robert will not reach his target weight in 3 months. Unfortunately, he just doesn't lose the weight in time. Okay, we're gonna do one more. So we'll do this one together. We have Brian. Brian has $200 and is spending at a rate of $10 every 3 days. Okay, so initially at the beginning, Brian has $200. Okay, so on day 0, Brian has 200. Then spending is negative $10 every 3 days. So my days are increasing by 3. And if I spend money, it's negative. So this is negative 10. So on the top, if I continue that pattern, this becomes 3, 6, 9, 12. So my change in x is plus 3. On the bottom, if I continue this pattern, this is negative 190. No, not negative 190, sorry. Just 190. So this is 190, this is 180, 170, 160, and then I stop there. So then my change in y is minus 10. All right, when I calculate my m, remember it's y over x, so negative 10 over positive 3. Always check and plug it in. If I plug it into my calculator, it stays the same. So negative 10 over 3. All right, B says use your table to make a graph. What's nice about my graph is that the labels are there for the axes, but the numbers are not there. So for the x-axis for the number of days, because I'm going up by threes, I think I'm going to continue that. So this becomes 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, and 24. Okay, for the amount of money, because I want to make sure I go all the way to 200, I think I'm going to go up by 20s just to make sure I go up to 200. So 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, 200. Perfect. Then I'm going to plot my points. And so I have 0, 200, 3, 190. I'll put that right here. 6, 180. And I'll just put all of them. 9, 170. And 12, 160. Okay, perfect. Then I'm going to take my ruler and connect them. And remember, go all the way through. So all the way through. And it's decreasing, which makes sense because I'm spending my money. Okay, remember that rule means equation. Always look back at the variables that your problem is using. So I'm using f of x and x. So I have f of x equals, my m is my slope, so this negative 10 over 3. I have x, and then my b is my start, wherever x equals 0, and that's right here. So my start is going to be at 200. Okay, perfect. D says, how much money will Brian have left in 3 weeks? What's difficult here is that your table is in terms of days, so you need to change weeks to days. Because I don't have a lot of space, there are 7 days in 1 week, and 7 times 3 is 21. So 21 days is the same as 3 weeks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in 21 for both of the x's that I see. So my x here is 21. So anywhere I see an x, I see it in 2 spots, I'm going to plug in 21. The right side, this is all calculator, so let me plug that in. Make sure you practice it as well, right? Because on your quiz, you're going to have to do it. So to get to the fraction, I press alpha, y, enter, negative 10 over 3, parentheses 21, plus 200. I get 130. So in 3 weeks or after 3 weeks, Brian is going to have $130 left. Okay, so let me write a sentence. So Brian will have $130 left in 3 weeks. Okay, part E, on what day will Brian have no money left? So that means the amount of money has to be 0. You could keep the table going if you wanted to, or I want these variables to be 0 because that's when I have no more money. So this is saying my f of x is 0. So anywhere I see these letters or these variables, I'm going to substitute it with 0. So let me do that. So I have 0 equals, and then the rest of my equation. And then here, I'm solving for x. This is a multi-step equation. The first thing I'm going to do is subtract the 200. I get negative 200 equals negative 10 over 3x. In order to get rid of the fraction, I have to multiply by the number on the bottom, which is a 3. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3. That way these cancel. 3 times negative 200, negative 600. Then I'm left with negative 10x. The last thing I'm going to do is, because I want the x by itself, is I'm going to divide by negative 10. Sorry, the day just ended. When I divide that on the right, these cancel. And when I divide negative 600 by negative 10, I get 60. So on what day will Brian have no money left? Well, it looks like on day 60. So on day 60, Brian will have no money left. Okay, part F. Part F talks about domain and range. Remember, domain is your x's and range is your y's. Here, for my domain, you want to think about your start and your finish. Okay, so think about your x's, right? Domain is the x's. So if I look at my table, it looks like I start on day 0. Okay, perfect. So my start is 0. Finish though, so I want to think about, okay, well, Brian is going to have no money left on day 60. Okay, and my x is being represented for the days. So it looks like I go from 0 to 60 days. Okay, range is your y's. Okay, so here are my y's. Same idea, right? My start and my finish. However, you always want to go in order from smallest to largest. So I know that Brian starts with $200. Okay, but eventually he ends up with no money, right? He ends up with $0. So it looks like I'm going from 200 to 0, but because I want to go in order from smallest to largest, it looks like I'm going from $0 to $200 because my y's, remember, are being represented by the amount of money. So you want to think of your start and your stop, right? Your start and your finish. Okay, we're going to stop there for today, and then tomorrow we'll finish the rest of the packet.